The Flower of the High Ridge and His Coquettish Brother. Chapter 1 Encounter in the Wind. Professor Shen is a well-known talent on campus, a top scholar in the Department of Mathematics, humble and calm, always giving people an unattainable temperament of a flower of the mountains. Whenever he appeared in the classroom, the students unconsciously quieted down and listened to him solve problems in concise but delicate language. However, no one knows that Professor Shen has a special secret in private. He, a freshman who has just entered college, looks like the kind of street boy who loves to wear leather clothes, smoke and ride cool motorcycles. In the eyes of outsiders, he is a rare cool brother on campus, which is respectful and awe-inspiring. However, only Professor Shen knew that this classmate he was actually a kitten who could act coquettishly. That evening, Professor Shen had just finished a complicated seminar and was about to ride home. Suddenly, a figure slid into his sight. He was sitting on a silver-gray locomotive, his eyes provocative, but he hid a hint of imperceptible tenderness. "Teacher Shen, the back seat of my motorcycle is only for you." He laughed badly. Professor Shen was stunned, but didn't say much, just silently stepped onto the locomotive. The car started, the wind whistled by, and his hand gently held Professor Shen's waist, and at that moment, Professor Shen felt a warmth he had never felt before. Chapter 2 Rebellious Gummies. He was actually born into an ordinary family, but he liked to chase speed and freedom since he was a child. After the start of his college life, he rode a motorcycle through the streets of the city as if he had changed his person, smoking the cigarettes he occasionally secretly bought, like the rebel boy in the movie. But in the dead of night, only Professor Shen was by his side. He would turn into the clingy kitten, hugging Professor Shen's arm tightly, and said coquettishly, "Teacher Shen, can you buy me a cake to eat?" Professor Shen would always smile and agree, and then the two of them would walk into the small and warm cake shop together. He looked at the rows of colorful desserts in the window, his eyes shining with innocence. The male protagonist who went to college, drag racing, smoking. It was the most wonderful adventure of his life. He said jokingly, "But I think the most precious thing is the company of you, the flower of the mountains." Professor Shen's eyes softened, and he gently held his hand. "I am willing to be the light in your life." Chapter 3 The Storm is Coming. One night, he was riding a motorcycle to meet Professor Shen, but he encountered an accident on the street corner. The vehicle lost control and he was forced to brake urgently, almost crashing into an oncoming van. Fortunately, the response was timely, but the locomotive was badly damaged. The news reached Professor Shen's ears, and he immediately rushed to the scene. He had a bruised face, but tried to squeeze out a smile. "Teacher, I'm fine, don't worry." But Professor Shen knew that it was not only the damage to the locomotive, but also the torment in his heart. "You can't be like this," Professor Shen said seriously but with concern. "Your safety is more important than anything else." He lowered his head and said nothing, tears welling up in his eyes. "I just want you to see a different me." Professor Shen gently wiped away his tears. "What I love is not the coolness of your body, but your true appearance." Chapter 4 Bizarre Agreements. Things seemed to be slowly calming down, but there was always an unresolved knot in his heart. He decided to take Professor Shen to a secret place, an abandoned amusement park on the edge of the city. The amusement park is bizarre, with neon lights flashing with bizarre colors, and carousels emitting ancient music, as if time has frozen here. He took Professor Shen's hand and jumped on a Ferris wheel that had already rusted. "Teacher, I want to make an agreement with you that no matter how unpredictable the future is, we will face it together." Professor Shen looked at those eyes that flashed with determination, smiled and nodded. "Okay, I promise you." On the high Ferris wheel, they made a promise to become each other's most solid support. Chapter 5 The Dawn of the Night. College life is gradually coming to an end, and his rebellion is gradually subsiding, but he still retains that pure enthusiasm. Because of this company, Professor Shen has gained new impetus in teaching and research. Once, a large-scale mathematics competition was held on campus, and Professor Shen took he to participate together. On the field, he unexpectedly showed outstanding mathematical talent, which amazed everyone. After the game, they sat on the grass on campus, looking at the starry sky, and he whispered, "Teacher Shen, you are the most important person in my life. No matter how difficult the road ahead is, I am willing to go with you. Professor Shen hugged him tightly. With you, everywhere is home. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 6: The Prologue to the Future. Years later, he became an excellent engineer, and Professor Shen became an internationally renowned mathematician. Their stories are as bright as the stars and as gentle as whispers in the wind. At a double celebration of academics and life, he held a homemade cake in his hand and said to Professor Shen with a smile, "Teacher, the back seat of my motorcycle will always be reserved for you." Professor Shen held his hand and responded softly, "My flower of the mountains is not only a professor, but also a home in your heart." Chapter 7: The Undercurrent is Surging. In his first year at an engineering company, he quickly attracted the attention of his superiors because of his unique thinking and excellent technical performance. However, the workplace is not all about the glamorous side. In a project meeting, his proposal was strongly opposed by senior engineer Zheng Kaiwen. Zheng Kaiwen is a veteran in the company, with a lot of power, a stubborn personality, and does not like newcomers to steal the limelight. "Your plan is too risky and unrealistic," Zheng Kaiwen said coldly. He responded, "Sometimes, adventure is the starting point of innovation." When Professor Shen learned of this, he came to the company to visit him and reminded him earnestly, "The workplace is like a battlefield, you can't just rely on enthusiasm, you must know strategy." He nodded and decided to learn to keep a low profile and wait for the opportunity. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 8: The Secret in the Night. During this time, the relationship between he and Professor Shen was still sweet, but he also began to face some challenges. One night, Professor Shen received an anonymous message suggesting that some colleagues were jealous of his academic status and intended to spread false rumors. The news shocked him and made him feel uneasy. The two hid in Professor Shen's study, and it was windy and rainy outside the window. He suddenly squeezed Professor Shen's hand and said softly, "Teacher, no matter how strong the wind or rain is, I will accompany you." Professor Shen was so moved that he almost burst into tears. He hugged and the two snuggled up to each other and became each other's strongest backing. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 9: The Disappearing Shadow. However, good times are not constant. One day, on the way home, he suddenly received an indifferent message from Professor Shen, "I need time, please don't come to me yet." He was at a loss for a moment, and he repeatedly called Professor Shen's phone, but no one answered. Professor Shen's disappearance kept him awake at night, and he began to look for the familiar figure in every corner of the city. Until late one night, he found Professor Shen in an abandoned library. He sat at the dusty table, his eyes confused, as if he had lost his soul. "Teacher, what happened?" He knelt beside him, his voice trembling. Professor Shen slowly raised his head, his eyes full of helplessness. I was framed." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 10: The Fog of Truth. Professor Shen was accused of academic fraud and faced great pressure from the university's investigation and public opinion. This news was like a boulder breaking his heart, and he wanted to find out the truth at all costs. He used all his resources and began to investigate clues inside and outside the campus. During this period, he discovered that Zheng Kaiwen was actually involved in this matter. Zheng Kaiwen was unwilling to let Professor Shen's fame overwhelm him, and secretly made a defamation plan. Faced with this sudden conspiracy, he and Professor Shen reunited and joined forces to expose the truth and save Professor Shen's innocence. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 11: Jedi Strikes Back. After weeks of investigation and defense, Professor Shen finally cleared his grievances at the school's formal hearing. Zheng Kaiwen's conspiracy was exposed, and he was suspended for investigation and faced legal sanctions. After this turmoil, Professor Shen became stronger and cherished the company of he even more. He has also gradually gained a firm foothold in the workplace and has become an indispensable partner of Professor Shen. They have been tested through ups and downs, and they have also found true strength in each other's love. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 12: Flowers Bloom Endlessly. After experiencing the turmoil, the two chose to hold a small and warm engagement ceremony under Professor Shen's favorite cherry blossom tree on a warm spring day. He gently put the ring on Professor Shen's finger and said with a smile, "Teacher, our story has just begun." Professor Shen's eyes flashed with tears. "Yes, with you, I am willing to face all the challenges in the future." The cherry blossom petals fall like snow, accompanied by the vows of the two, reflecting a love legend that spans youth, rebellion, challenge, and light. Chapter 13 The Trial of Fate. Life after engagement is not all smooth sailing. He received an invitation to work overseas, which was a dream opportunity for him, but it also meant leaving Professor Shen for a while. The two sat opposite each other in the park at night, and his hand was clenched tightly. "Teacher, I'm afraid that you will disappoint you if you leave." Professor Shen smiled, his eyes firm. "Love is not a bondage, but a support. Go pursue your dreams, I'll be waiting for you here." On the eve of parting, he whispered in Professor Shen's ear, "The back seat of my motorcycle will always be reserved for you. No matter how far away, our hearts are together." Chapter 14 Loneliness and Growth in a Foreign Land. In a foreign country, he faced an unfamiliar culture, heavy work, and lonely nights. He occasionally thought of Professor Shen's warm embrace, and his thoughts came like a tide. Late at night after working overtime, he turned on his mobile phone and saw a text message from Professor Shen, "No matter where you are, there will always be a home waiting for you here." He clutched his mobile phone, and strength surged in his heart. He worked hard and continued to learn, gradually earning the respect of his colleagues and superiors. Chapter 15 The Surprise of the Way Home. 2 years later, he embarked on a flight back to China with full achievements and thoughts. Professor Shen waited at the airport, their eyes meeting in the thousands of people, and time seemed to freeze. He ran to Professor Shen and hugged him tightly. "Teacher, I'm back." Professor Shen smiled and stroked his hair. "Welcome home." Chapter 16 Hand in Hand to Welcome the Future. The two began to prepare for the wedding, inviting relatives and friends to create their own happy time together. On the wedding day, the sky was sunny, the cherry blossoms were flying, and the guests were smiling. Wearing a straight suit, he held Professor Shen's hand and vowed like a song, "No matter the wind or rain, no matter the difficulties, we will walk hand in hand." Professor Shen had tears in his eyes and responded gently, "You are the most beautiful miracle in my life." The ending is glorious and eternal. Life after marriage was warm and fulfilling, with he making a name for himself in the engineering world and Professor Shen continuing to shine in academia. Their love is like the cherry blossoms, still blooming after wind and frost. One night, the two hugged each other on the balcony, looking at the starry sky, and he whispered, "Thank you for giving me such a bizarre but real love." Professor Shen shook his hand back, "With you, life is complete." Postscript. This is a love story from youthful rebellion to maturity and stability, and the two write their own chapter with sincerity and courage. The flower of the mountains and the coquettish cool brothers seem to be out of sync, but they are a perfect fit under the gears of fate. May all those who are confused in love find the person who is willing to accompany you to act coquettishly and protect you thoroughly, no matter how far away the back seat of the motorcycle is, that position will always be reserved for you.